apparently that had been going on, that he had been beating her for quite a while. And in one of the articles, it just says that she had had enough and she was ready to speak out now. That was a serious assault. It was reported to the police, but the police did not arrest him. So on top of that, he actually was arrested for having firearms that were not properly stored, but not for the assault, which I found to be somewhat strange, because there's a massive focus on here in Australia about domestic violence, and many women who have died at the hands of their husbands or boyfriends through domestic violence. And so it's been a big thing, a lot of media about it, a lot of concern, a lot of, what are we going to do about it type of thing here. So which makes it quite surprising that with the degree of damage that he did, which kind of adds up because he's a martial arts trainer, so, and a big man. So he would have been capable of doing a lot of damage. So why they didn't arrest him for that, I don't know. But it seems that when she was assaulted and she's in hospital, it was him that went in and got a VRO on her. So that kind of explains a lot as well, because one of the articles, and I think it's from a family, have said he got in first. He got in before she could. So that puts her in a situation and explains a lot about the violence restraining order, in that has he's taken it out and she's not had the opportunity, before she had the opportunity to do so. The reason that she's not seen her children is quite possibly because he's got the children covered with the interim VRO. But when somebody is served with a VRO, you have the option to contest that. And as it was going through courts, which it's reported that it was going through the courts to a trial, she obviously contested it. And that wasn't actually going to be sorted out till June. So that's another thing that raises a lot of questions, because she had the potential to get her children back. She had the potential through the upcoming trial to explain the whole situation. She would have had evidence, the hospital reports, etc., witnesses and so forth, that she would have had plenty of evidence that would have incriminated him. What had it got to court, which it hadn't at that stage, not to the point where she could, to a trial where all of this would come out. So there's that as well. It raises a lot of questions.
Good grief, Murray. This is absolutely mind-blowing, because we had heard about him beating her up and stuff, but the level of knowledge and detail that you've got about what actually happened, this is the first I've heard this. And I'm imagining that many people in the chat have not heard this level of detail as well. So we really do appreciate you coming on and sharing this. Now, I'm looking at, the list of things that was sent about the information that you were aware of. And one of them is about how these files were supposed to be released by Trump, by Pam Bondi. And it seems that, the timing of it seems suspect with what's happened with Virginia because of the timing of the release of this information. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, when you look at the timeline, it is very interesting, because Trump did say that he would release those files. But then I've actually seen a post where he says nobody's really interested in Epstein anymore. The interest is in JFK. Apparently what was released is only what the public already know, and any other details were withheld. So the timing is interesting, because that was all meant to happen in February. In January, she's severely and seriously beaten up by her husband. In February, he says that she breached that restraining order with a text message. And Then in March, there's a bus accident. So the bus accident's kind of odd too. And then in April, she's dead. So it's pretty close. You know, all of those things sort of go one after the other.
So you've got a question from one of the viewers. So if he knew in advance what she was planning, so that he could make his move first, how did he become aware of that? How did he know in advance
that she was going to blow the whistle now? Because her family apparently were talking to her and saying that you may not survive next time. January, apparently she nearly died, and they're saying, you know, you've got to do something. And so she says, and it's all in articles, this is not, you know, this is not me, it's all documented. She says something to the effect that she hasn't spoken out now. She was able to deal with Epstein, she was able to deal with Maxwell, but she has not been able to deal with her husband and the assaults from her husband until now. So when you think until now, it seems that, you know, she had resolved to do something about it at that stage. And I mean, he's quite likely to have known that he's crossed the line.
What do you think about the police immediately announcing that there was nothing suspicious?
Well, that's odd. The whole thing is odd. I mean, in the newspapers, they say now that the journalists are saying that the police didn't have any record of the accident. And then they say that they knew about it or the newspaper article came out on the 30th, which is a Saturday. It actually didn't come out until the Monday. And then the press conference also came out on the Monday. So the photograph came out on the Monday and the press conference was on Monday. Prior to that, it would appear that the police had no record of any accident until that photograph hit the newspaper. Yeah, according to the article, the the major crime are investigating. So it's been passed on to major crime, but major crime have come straight out saying nothing suspicious. So until that, I question how they can say nothing suspicious, considering the hospitalization in January and the beating in January. That to me would raise suspicion. But you know, and a major crime. They're making it a major crime, but not suspicious. That's a bit odd. It's contrary. It's contradictory.
Absolutely. And one of the quotes that Virginia is credited with was about the beatings. In an exclusive statement to the People, she said, "I was able to fight back against Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein, who abused and transported me, but I was unable to escape my husband's latest physical assault. I can no longer stay silent." What do you make of that?
Well, I think that's when he realized that in order to stop the publicity, as far as he was concerned, because she was still very high profile. And so had that gone ahead and had that become news, it would have been all over the place. It would have, you know, he would have been the prime person to be exposed for the beatings, potential divorce. It would have been everywhere on headlines everywhere. I guess that's not very pleasant. Who knows? I think it was very interesting how she actually met him in the first place. I think that's interesting, in that there's apparently just Wikipedia gives her a history, and it says that she was abused by a close family friend as a child, and she ran away from home. She was a street kid. She was a foster kid. And then she actually lived 6 months with a pedophile who was a trafficker. After that, she was reconciled with her dad, who worked at Mar-a-Lago, Trump's Mar-a-Lago. He was the maintenance manager, and he got her a job there as a spa attendant, and that's where she met Maxwell. So where she met her husband was when Epstein and Maxwell sent her to Thailand to bring a Thai girl back from Thailand for Epstein. And that's when she met Robert Giuffre. And it was a whirlwind romance. They were married very, very quickly. And she then sort of set up as wife and mum.
And do you have any estimate on how soon her husband started to become abusive towards her?
According to the articles, he's been abusive 10 years.
Whew.
It's been going on for 10 years.
Wow. And do you know how long they've been separated for?
There's one article that says it was in 2023. Then there's another one, and I think it's mostly from the family, that actually said they were separated in January after that beating.
As in just recently?
Yeah, well, yes. So I'm confused on that matter. I don't know which is which. But apparently they were celebrating one of the children's birthdays in an area called Dunsborough, and that's when the attack took place.
So she moved to this place near you, but he was in Perth. Is that correct?
No, not quite. Ocean Reef is where the family home was, and that's about 15 minutes away from where I live. She bought a farm in a place called Gin, and that's a fair distance out of Perth. 40-acre farm, and that's a fair distance out of Perth. So my understanding here is she was living at the farm, he was living with the kids in the house at Ocean Reef.
So does that mean she moved that distance to get away from him, do you think?
Yes. And so that becomes another question. This apparently all happened 10 o'clock at night. She's living at the farm. He's living at Ocean Reef. 10 o'clock at night, somebody had to call in the emergency services. Somebody was there to call the emergency services. So who the police are not telling us who was there at 10 o'clock at night to call the alert. And there's nothing also coming out about actually, like with Epstein, he hung himself, with Brunel, he hung himself. Nobody's saying anything about how she died.
So the theory that I've got on this channel is pharmacide, whereby people are put under pressure and then they're increasingly put on medication, and then the medication sees them off, and it's never investigated as a murder because, they do it in like this sneaky way. And we're wondering what medication she was on, and if there's an autopsy, what medication will be revealed to be in her system.
That would be interesting, but there are so many other factors, like even with the bus, there's odd things happening with the bus accident. The bus driver he says that he only clipped the back of the car. She wasn't driving. A 71-year-old woman was driving. So he gets out of the bus and he asks the driver, are you okay? And he exchanges phone numbers. She asks if the children on the school bus are okay. He asked, does she live where she was going? Is that where she lives? So there was quite an engagement there in conversation, and he goes and reports to the police, and apparently that has been reported that there was a 71-year-old driver and a 41-year-old passenger, but then he turns around and says he never saw the passenger. So, how do you have an exchange like that where you are checking out if somebody's okay in the car and exchanging phone numbers and having a chat about, where they're living, and not see a passenger. And apparently it was the 71-year-old that actually then, he rang the 71-year-old, says, I've reported this to the police. The 71-year-old rang him the following day and said that the passenger has a black eye. But then later on, he says there's no way she could have got that injury that was a black eye, which was what in the photograph, from the accident. So there's just stuff that it just doesn't add up. It really doesn't add up.
Do you think that the bus driver was trying to minimize it because his job was at risk?
I don't know. I really don't know where he's coming from. Everybody's saying, the police are saying it was a minor accident. The bus driver is saying it's a minor accident. But the woman driving the car says she had a black eye, which you can see in the photograph that hits the newspaper. So at the end of the day, it doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense.
So we got a viewer called Christy asking whether you think the black eye was from the husband and not the bus accident.
It's feasible. It's feasible. I can't, obviously I wasn't there. I don't know. I just think it's feasible. I mean, if he beat her up in the January, who's to say?
Tracy wants to know whether there was a bunch of kids on the bus.
Yes, 29 school children.
So it must have been quite a scene then. They would have been quite upset, wouldn't they?
Well, it's another, yeah, you'd think so. But then apparently, again, in another article, one of the mothers comes out and says that children really weren't fazed. It was a minor accident. It was just the tail brakes that were broken. But this is coming from the children who were sitting on the bus. So, how did they come to the conclusion only the tail lights were broken? And it was a Toyota that they were driving. And, these are kids. These are kids.
It sounds like it's scripted, doesn't it?
It does. It does. This is what I'm saying. There's big holes in all of it. In all of
So
it.
you got another question from Tracy. Would that have not been an extremely quiet, off the beaten track road where the bus accident happened?
It was.
I believe the nearest town from her had less than 300 people. How could this happen?
Well, it was a country road. They were driving around a country road. It's a 40-acre hobby farm, so it's not in a built-up residential area. So yeah, it was on a big stretch of road, country road.
So Tink is asking if you have any more details about her husband's background other than him being a martial arts teacher.
No. Other than that, I don't know. He was in Thailand as a martial arts trainer. Met her, and they had this. They were married very, very quickly. Very quickly. That's
So
about all.
under Australian law, would he inherit her assets then?
Depending on whether she had a will, quite likely. But I mean, this is another thing. Apparently, when she got the settlement from Maxwell, I think it was Maxwell, or no, it wasn't. It was from Prince Andrew. A big slab of that went to the charity that she'd set up. She had set up a charity for women who'd been abused, and a good part of that that settlement, or a big slab of the settlement, went to the charity. But here again, we're looking at compensation from Ghislaine Maxwell. We're looking at what is described as a large sum of money, although it's never been specifically identified, from Prince Andrew. The house that she was in Ocean Reef cost her 1.9 million, and the farm cost 3. So there should be a large sum of money floating around somewhere, unless there is a will specifically leaving it to her children. He probably will. They're not divorced. Yes, he will. He'll get it all.
And she was quite close to getting divorced, wasn't she? So if
Yes.
that had been completed, then he would have struggled to get these assets, perhaps.
He would have lost a lot. Yes, he would have lost a lot in a
Because one of
divorce
the
settlement.
things,
And it looks like that's the way it's heading.
because one of the most common questions we're being asked is who benefits from her death. So he would be on that list.
He'd be the biggest benefactor. Yes, he would.
And when we saw her lawyer go on Piers Morgan, he said that there was a lot of Epstein collaborators that were still harassing Virginia. So I imagine they benefit as well by getting her out of the way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I guess that's the other factor, that there's a big push now for these documents that are being withheld to be released. There's a lot of pressure for them to be released. So, that's an unknown area, but you can surmise that there's going to be a lot of people who have is it in their interest for that to keep quiet. And
So in your research,
she was with Epstein for a long, long time. She knows the who's who.
I can't imagine how many people whose name she must know.
Absolutely.
So there's a quote then from her husband about a time when she had a broken neck. Have you heard about this quote?
No, I haven't. But I have heard that her father has come out and said that he does not believe this was suicide and he wants it investigated.
Yeah, we saw him on Piers Morgan. He did really well because the lady that was trolling Virginia, Lady Victoria Hervey, she was talking to Piers Morgan, and then Piers Morgan brought Virginia's father on, and she still continued to try and frustrate Virginia's reputation. It was disgusting, when you've got a grieving father on the screen.
It is, because there's really no doubting that she was a victim, Epstein and Maxwell's victim, along with a whole heap of others. It just wasn't her. So where's the doubt, and why does that make her somebody that somebody should troll and pull down that way? It is disgusting. And you've got to ask the question, why? Why? When this is so obvious, what is the benefit for those people who are trolling her? Why? Are they hiding something that they want to disguise by ridiculing her? That's the only reason I can think of.
I think there's been a huge campaign against her by the Epstein collaborators. They've financed it and encouraged this trolling, and that was to increase the pressure on her. And at the same time, the medication would be increased.
Well, the thing here too is that it's not just Epstein collaborators. You've got to look at Prince Andrew. Apparently, again, it's just rumor, hearsay, or whatever. I have no evidence of it, but he was gradually becoming more and more prominent within the royal family. And of course, if that it keeps things alive as far as he's concerned, and who knows what else can come out, or who else can come out.
Like a cockroach trying to come out in the sunlight and has to get back into the darkness because he gets re-exposed. So you're being asked by Tink, if Virginia's eldest child is 19, therefore an adult, doesn't that make a difference about who gets her estate?
I'm no lawyer, but I'm thinking that it actually goes to the spouse rather than, unless it's specifically noted in a will, that the children inherit whatever portion or all. By virtue of the fact that you have a spouse, your assets automatically transfer to your spouse.
Yeah, that makes sense. Christy wants to know if you've heard any theories about her being poisoned.
No, 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 that hasn't been an issue. A lot of the information I got from reading what her family had to say, most especially her brother and the brother's wife. No, they mentioned the beatings. They mentioned the seriousness of the beatings, but absolutely nothing about any medication. It's not come out in the newspapers. It's not come out in articles. There's been nothing.
All right, so we've got almost 1,000 people watching live. We're here with Murray, who is a victims advocate in Australia. And Murray lives local to one of the Virginia's properties. And she's got a unique insight. So we really appreciate her spending time with us today. You're getting asked if the Australian police can be trusted to give us the correct details about what's happened here, or will it be covered up?
The Australian police cannot be trusted, and yes, it will be covered up.
What's your basis for saying that they won't be trusted?
Experience.
Okay. So Charlie's asking, what are your feelings about Virginia's family members, including the brothers?
I think her brother and the brother's wife are truly devastated by it all. From what I can tell, bearing in mind, I don't know them, I don't have contact. I'm coming from what I've read. It seems like they're really concerned for her. Some members of the family have come out straight away saying it's suicide, but my impression from what I read is they're scared. They're scared to say anything.
Which is very understandable, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think they're scared to counter the narrative.
Yeah, so one thing you've drawn us to is the length of the beatings from her husband and the serious nature of them. I'll just read another quote here. It was speaking exclusive people, Virginia's brother and his wife, Amanda, said Virginia is making allegations because of the severity of her injuries. I think the last incident that she had almost died, Amanda said, about the January the 9th beating, and we had to speak the truth with her on the phone. And I think she had acknowledged that if she had one more instance with him, she wasn't making it out of there. And wow, I don't think many of the viewers watching right now understood the severity of what Virginia was going through.
So here's the thing. One of the big things that I think raises a lot of questions. She loved her children. She missed her children. That was the thing that was hurting her most. She missed her children. That came up so many times in the articles. She was missing her children. So when you think, okay, he's gone in, he's got a VRO on her whilst he's beating her up, that covers his backside, right? And the fact that the children were not at the hospital and so forth, all those things lead you to believe that she's the aggressor. But he would have, I would assume, I believe, covered the children on the interim VRO as well as himself. So if they're covered by the VRO, they are unable to visit her. She is unable to have contact with them. However, this was going through the court process. She'd been into court in April. It was then going to go to trial in June. That would have been her way of saying what's going on, clearing her name, explaining that she's not the aggressor, which she would have had ample evidence of, and having her children back. So why would she kill herself while she's in that process? That does not make sense. She would want to follow this through and have her children back.
Yep, she had all kinds of plans. And Mary sent us quotes from the brother, Sky Roberts. I'll continue this one. Speaking about the damage to Virginia's organs, Sky said, I think that's from years of alleged abuse. You have to think she's been allegedly being abused for over 10 years. Anyone's body is going to take a toll over a course of time. And Sky and Amanda note that they didn't know whether Virginia's medical issues were caused by the crash or complications from a recent beating she allegedly suffered at the hands of her husband, or a combination of the two. And it says here Virginia had been having marital issues for a while, and in August 2023 or so, separated from Robert. During a trip to celebrate one of their children's birthdays in January, Robert allegedly beat Virginia so severely she was left with a cracked sternum, perforated eye, and other injuries. She was transported.
He's a martial arts expert. He's a martial arts expert, and there's a photograph of him. He is a big man. She was only little.
That's terrible. Michelle wants to know how many brothers, siblings does Virginia have?
Well, I know. I think she's only got the one. I think it's only one. Sky. Yeah.
All right. So let me just continue to read this. Let's see. She's transported to hospital for her injuries. Robert was a martial arts trainer when they met. To the family's shock, they say Robert quickly filed a family violence restraining order against her, alleging she was the one being violent with him. He just put his in place first. This is from the brother of Virginia, Sky. Now she's on the defense. She was accused of breaching the order by texting Robert on February the 2nd in Perth. She never stated in the bus accident the cause of all her other injuries. This is from Sky. But I do think that the bus crash in some way, shape, or form saved her life. It could have been a blessing in disguise. What's your interpretation of him saying it could have saved her life?
Well, in the newspaper article that hit the paper here, it said that she got 4 days to live. So, of course, they've jumped on that to say she was lying, she's exaggerated, she's done this, that, and the other. But it seems that what has actually evolved, because she obviously was hospitalized from the car accident. And when she was hospitalized, the hospital found that she was going into, is it kidney failure, renal failure, something? She was anyway, the organs were starting to fail. She didn't know that. It would appear she did not know that was happening before the accident. So it was discovered as a result of the accident. Not that nobody's saying the accident caused it. It was discovered as a result of the accident because she was in the hospital. So she was transferred to the urology, and they were obviously able to deal with it. They were obviously able to treat with it. Whereas had they not been able to treat it, and had she not been hospitalized because of the accident, had they not been able to treat it, she was in serious trouble. So that's where I've been told I've got 4 days to live comes into it, because she was apparently